And then if you look at GDP per capita, you can see that Canada comes 28 out of 30 countries in terms of GDP per capita between 2014 and 2022. You've seen nearly in the past entire decade, just pretty much no growth that has happened. Canadians are getting poorer as the economy collapses. The Bank of Canada is also sounding the alarm on this. So let's get into what's going on here. So a whole economy issue. Labor productivity declines for a second straight quarter. Obviously, labor productivity going down is not a good thing. And it's something that we've seen continuously along with GDP per capita. So we'll get into that and what the Bank of Canada is saying as well. So labor productivity at Canadian businesses fell by 0.2% during the second quarter of 2024, with 11 out of 16 main industries recording declines. Statistics Canada said on Thursday. Productivity has now declined for 2 consecutive quarters after a 0.3% drop in the first quarter of this year. At an annual rate, productivity fell by 0.7%. So very interesting. And then they have this chart here where you can see what's going on. The results build on a worrying trend of declining labor productivity, an important driver for disposable income and standard of living of Canadians. That one is important there. Standard of living of Canadians. So obviously, if productivity is decreasing, that ain't a good thing. And if you couple that with GDP per capita also going down, even worse. And that's exactly what we've got going on here. So it says this is not a problem confined to one region or sector, say manufacturing. It is a whole economy issue, said Douglas Porter, chief economist at Bank of Montreal, in a note to clients. And while it may seem like an esoteric topic for many, the reality is that unless it is properly addressed, Canada's relative standard of living will continue to weaken. So that is coming from the Bank of Montreal. So very interesting. Now I want to show you what the Bank of Canada is saying about this, because it's interesting and you can kind of connect the dots and think what's causing this after you hear this little clip here.
On how we leverage and develop the skills of these new workers. Too often, new Canadians are working in jobs that don't take advantage of the skills they already possess, and too often these people wind up stuck in low-wage, low-productivity jobs.
So why do you think that that is happening? Let me know in the comments, because I'd be interested to see obviously what I think is happening. You've got this high immigration that's going on, but most of it is going into low-wage, low-skilled jobs because those people, they don't have lots of skills, because loopholes in the immigration system have been really exploited over the past 5 to 8 years, and it has just continued and ramped up, and the government has even encouraged it, as we've seen come out in the media over the past couple of weeks. So a healthy economy depends on high productivity. This is the Bank of Canada here. Strong productivity, which leads to faster growth, more jobs and higher wages, is an important way to protect the economy from the risks of high inflation. Canada has seen no productivity growth in recent years, and over the past 4 decades, we have actually slipped significantly compared with some other countries. In fact, relative to the United States, among G7 countries, we are now second to only Italy when it comes to the productivity decline. And if we go to the Fraser Institute here, this infographic, you can see investment of worker, the difference between what's happened in the United States and what's happened in Canada. So in 2014, Canadian productivity peaked out. It was around $18,363 per worker. And now it's down at $14,687. In the same time, the US has gone from $23,333 to $26,751 invested in workers. So more money is being invested in the United States. Is it any wonder why? Is it any wonder why you are seeing a brain drain happen? I know many of you move into the United States, and really all the people that I've spoke to who are going to the United States, they're always skilled people. They're all the talents that need to be kept within Canada, but quite frankly, Canada can't hold on to them. And the divergence between the wages in Canada has got so extreme now that it's paying people to actually leave leave the country. So that goes to show what a slippery slope Canada is on right now with productivity and also unemployment that is out of control. The amount of unemployed people just continues to rise. And then if you look at GDP per capita again, this comes from the Fraser Institute, you can see that Canada comes 28 out of 30 countries in terms of GDP per capita between 2014 and 2022. So obviously not a good sign. Canada is with Japan, Luxembourg, Mexico, France, Germany. And really that just goes to show, obviously Japan has been locked in multiple lost decades, and it looks like Canada is going through exactly the same thing, because you've seen nearly in the past entire decade just pretty much no growth that has happened when it comes to GDP per capita. And that number is misleading as well, because that number is divided equally, and the wealth distribution across the Canadian economy is far from equal compared to those people who are at the top, in the top 5%, the oligarchs. Those people are hoarding a lot of the wealth. Their wealth has increased drastically over the past 10 years at the expense of taking it away from the poor and the middle class. And that has just continued to accelerate. And unfortunately, when you're in this cycle, it will just continue regardless of the government that's in. So comparing per person GDP for select countries. So you've got Canada, Ireland, and the United States. Ireland, I don't think that's the best example the Fraser Institute could use, because the GDP per capita is skewed quite a bit by all the intellectual property that a lot of international companies are actually holding in Ireland for the tax benefits. So there's a whole tax benefit to companies like Apple doing that, and that skews the numbers for GDP per capita a lot, because Ireland, you know, if you actually go to Ireland, you wouldn't think, oh wow, lots of people are rich here. No, it's not like that at all. But anyway, it has the United States on here. So now we're not comparing business investment, we're comparing GDP per capita between Canada and the United States. And what you can see here is the United States has gone from 54,967 to 61,736 between 2010 and 2020. And that's predicted to only increase to 69,705. Whereas you look at what's happened with Canada, it's gone from 43,000 to 46,000, and it's only meant to increase to 49,000. Compared with the United States, that is a stark difference between the two economies. And obviously that's going to make all the more of the difference heading into the future when you consider about the brain drain that Canada is experiencing due to the fact the United States is a more beneficial place for these people to go to who have skills. So that will just further increase the collapse of the living standards in Canada, because unfortunately in Canada, red tape, regulation, oligarchies, lack of competition, all these different things mean that the Canadian economy is far from an efficient economy and has just got worse and worse. And obviously with the government expansion that we've seen that's happened over the past decade, that just increases the red tape and regulation that we see across the economy. So those things, they hinder productivity growth. They hinder investment into workers, because quite frankly, obviously you're not going to invest more into a worker in Canada if you can get more out of them in the United States. And the fact is, Canada wouldn't have any investment if it wasn't for the crony capitalist deals that the government makes with such companies like Lululemon that we covered a year ago, even though that story seems to be going viral right now. The fact that they got a special exemption for labor market impact assessments to hire temporary workers. They were essentially blackmailing the government, saying, hey, we're going to leave if you don't do this. And then there's also Volkswagen to build that battery plant, which is completely stupid because nobody's buying EVs. And yet again, you don't have a free market of that, because you've got even the incoming Conservative Prime Minister likely, who will be, which is Pierre, he's saying that he's going to put tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. So yeah, it's all about the environment, and Canada and the United States are doing that regardless. So obviously they don't care about people getting into electric vehicles. It's only just about maintaining that status quo, whatever it is, and just crony capitalism. We have far from a free market in Canada, unfortunately, and that really hinders the economy. And it also makes things like this just become a given. So is it getting too expensive to raise a child in Canada? Obviously, we know Canada, like many Western countries, is experiencing a collapse in birth rates, essentially. And that can partly be attributed to the rising cost of living, the fact that people can't afford stuff like they used to. They can't afford to buy a home and all these different things which add to a sense of security. The high cost of living takes away that security, and then bringing a child into the world is seen of more of a risk. And unfortunately, that natural population growth will just continue to get worse the way things are going, because unfortunately, the standard of living just continues to collapse in Canada. So anyway, we will continue to see what happens here, guys. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd highly recommend that you check out this video here. And if you're looking for a VPN to protect your privacy, you know where to go. Go to expressvpn.com/marketmania, the affiliate link in the description. I will see you in the next one. Take care.